I'm Mary Rowlandson, a Puritan who was captured by the Native Americans. And these are my experiences from when I was captured by the Native Americans. I remember it like it was yesterday, the barbarous creatures taking us away with our bodies bleeding and our hearts no less than our bodies. About a mile was traveled that night and upon the hill they intended to lodge. There was an abandoned house that I asked if I could stay in there for the night.
Chief, can I stay in the abandoned house?
What will you love, Englishmen, still? Okay.
It looks like hell with these black creatures dancing in the night. There were horses, cattle, sheep, swine, calves, lamb, roasting pigs and fowls. Some of them roasting, others lay bundled on the ground, burning, and others boiling to feed our merciless enemies. Everything I had was gone, my husband gone. Well, he was at last separated to me. To make matters worse, the Indians told me they would kill him as he came homeward. My children are gone, my relationships, everything, except my life, because I know that soon that would be gone too. There remained nothing for me but my poor wounded babe.
Let's recap what we just learned. We learned that Mary Rowlandson is a Puritan from England who was kidnapped by the Native Americans along with many other English men and women. We also learned that Mary believes that she has lost everything, from her house to her family and her friends. She also views the natives as barbarous black creatures and merciless enemies. Mary Rowlandson shares that the Native American people had taken away everything she had and made them seem like evil people.
It is not my tongue or pen can express the sorrows I feel in my heart and the bitterness in my spirit that I had for this departure, but God was with me in a wonderful manner, carrying me and bearing up my spirit, and it did not quite fail. One of the Indians was carrying my poor wounded babe on top of a horse. My child was moaning as we went along. After a short while, I took my babe off the horse and carried them in my arms till my strength failed and I found down with it. And then they set me on top of the horse with my wounded babe. We were going down a steep hill and we fell over the horse's head. Those creatures laughed and rejoiced to see it. The Lord quickly made me regain faith, and later that day it started to snow.
In this remove, Mary Rowlandson shows extreme feelings of bitterness and sorrow towards the natives and other things that have been happening to her. We also see that she references the Lord, suggesting that she is religious. She talks about how her child is getting sicker and sicker, and she talks about how she and her child got hurt from falling off of a horse. It is early morning. Indians and Mary are getting prepared to be on their way. One of the Indians gets up on a horse, and the others set Mary up on a horse with her sick babe in her lap.
My child was getting exceedingly sick in lamentable condition with their wound. We were in poor condition. We barely had any crumbs or refreshments that came to our mouths on Wednesday night to Saturday night. All we were given was a bit of cold water. The amount of pagans around me. That must say as David saw 27:13. I had fainted, unless I had believed. The next day was Sabbath. It was then that I realized how careless I was of God's holy time. It would be righteous of God to cut off the thread of my life and cast me out of his presence forever. Somehow the Lord still showed mercy.
So in this remove, we learn has died. As an act of kindness, the natives have buried the child instead of leaving it out in the open. We also learn that Mary has been given very little food, and we also learn that Mary has other children that are still alive.
I have nothing to eat today except for crumbs and this moldy cake that my girl gave to me. But the Indian, I lie dry tonight thanks to this park wigwam the enemies has propped up for me.
This remove shows how Mary had very little food to eat, but it also showed how the Native Americans would give her very little food. She is also very biased towards the Native Americans because of her religious beliefs, so she makes them seem as though they are meaner than they actually are.
I've got a handful of nuts for my support this morning. I thought we were heading homeward. We went to the Bocog River near there. We will abode for a few days. Sometimes one of the Indians would give me a pipe or a small amount of tobacco, or even some salt, to which I would trade for some victuals. I was so starving that when the Indians gave me hot food, I was so greedy that I would burn my mouth. Sometimes it was days before I would eat, so when I could eat, I would never eat again. Hopefully the Lord and His Word will keep me from going insane and will help me stay alive.
This remove shows how Mary had very little food to eat, but it also showed how the Native Americans would give her very little food. She is also very biased towards the Native Americans because of her religious beliefs, so she makes them seem as though they are meaner than they actually are.
I was still getting weaker with no refreshments. My strength failed me and my spirit almost gone. I go into a wigwam and ask a native who was boiling horse feet if I could have some of his broth, to which he gave me a spool full of samp and some of the rough parts of the horse guts, to which I broiled on the hot coals. Now what I have eaten, I have my spirit back and some of my strength.
In this remove, Mary goes to different wigwams to try to find food. In one, she gets samp, or corn porridge. In another one, she gets some horse guts to eat.
You have disgraced your master by going to other wigwams to find food. If you do that again, we will have no other choice but to knock you in the head.
In this remove, we learn that Mary is not liked by the natives because she is considered greedy for going out to find food in other wigwams. Overall, this story shows perspective of how one English woman and natives got along in colonial America. Though the information came from someone who actually lived in this time, as a female and a Puritan, along with writing the story so far from when she was actually captive, her words are very biased
I'm Mary Rowlandson. I'm a Puritan who's
Action.
Stop it. Zoom in. Oh my god. Let me do this part.
This remove teaches us that Mary had very little food to eat, but it also shows how she was biased towards the Native Americans because of how. Let's recap what we just learned. We learned. Oh my god!
India.
You don't have anything rude to say.
Nothing to eat this day, but a few crumbs and cake that the Indians gave my girl the same day we were taken. Gave my nothing to eat today.
1.